Hello! In this chapter you will learn how to conjugate irregular verbs in German. Willkommen zu Abschnitt 13. In diesem Kapitel geht es die unregelmäßigen Verben. In this chapter it's about the irregular verbs. Now let's start with the first slide. So we have two very irregular verbs that we use very often in German, as well as in English, Hilfsverben, we also call them, which are sein, it is to be, and haben, to have. Now those are very irregular, and you really should study those because you will need them, and of course to use them very often, but you also need them to form the perfect tense, for example, and in general they are very useful words. So let's have a look at the conjugation of sein. Ich bin, du bist, sie, es ist, wir sind, ihr seid und sie sind. As you see, very irregular. Haben, ich habe, du hast, sie, es hat, wir haben, ihr habt und sie haben. Okay, please study those. I know they're quite irregular, but you really need those. Then, now let's have a look at what we are doing with verbs that ends with a D or a T at the verb stem. So, for example, we have the verb, let's have a look here first. This is a normal conjugation of a regular verb, kochen, right? And here you have the endings, just a regular verb. Then we have reden. Reden means to talk. It ends with a D at its verb stem. It has a D at the end. So in those cases, as you see here, you have to add an extra E. So it's ich rede, du redest, sie, es redet, wir reden, ihr redet und sie reden. So as you see, usually you would just have to add an ST at the end of the stem, but here, since it ends with a D, you have to add an EST. Here also an additional E, and here also an additional E. Okay, so it applies to du, sie, es und ihr. For those three personal pronouns, or let's say 6 altogether, five, you have to add this extra E for the pronunciation, because otherwise you would have to say du redst, which is difficult to pronounce, or es redt, right? Would sound a little bit awkward. So we add this E here in order to make it easier to pronounce. Then here we have an irregular verb. This is a regular verb, reden, a regular verb that ends with a DT. It's regular, everything is regular. You just have to add this extra E for the pronunciation. But here we have an irregular verb. It belongs to the group of irregular verbs. Halten means to hold, or it could also mean to stop in some cases. So in this case, with this irregular verb, here, as you see, the A changes to an A umlaut, and this is what always happens usually with normal irregular verbs, not with the ones that we just looked at, which is haben and sein. Those are completely irregular, but usually the irregular verbs like halten here, they just change for the conjugation of du and sie, es. Just for those two, it's changing. So here you see the A is changing to an A umlaut. It becomes du hältst and sie, es hält. Okay, but you don't, although it ends with a T, you don't add this extra E here. You don't say du hältest or sie, es hältet. It just stays normal, the ending, but the A is changing to an A umlaut. But since that's just irregular for du and sie, es, here when you look at ihr, the A is not changing to an A umlaut, but here now you have to add an E. So maybe to keep this better in mind, you can keep in mind that it's just one thing that is changing per verb in its conjugation, just one thing. It cannot be two things. It cannot be that the A is changing to an A umlaut and then you're adding an E. Just one thing. So here the A is changing to an A umlaut, and here you have to add the E, and the A does not change. Okay. So let's have a look at the next slide. Now this is a group of irregular verbs for which the E is changing to an IE. There are more than the ones that you see here, but that are the most important ones you need for the A1 level. Okay, so we have the verb sehen, which means to see. Ich sehe, du siehst, sie, es sieht, wir sehen, ihr seht und sie sehen. As you see, The only ones that are changing is du und er, sie, es. The E is changing to an IE. The rest stays exactly the same. So here we have a few more verbs that belong to this group, like befehlen, for example, to command. Du befiehlst, er, sie, es befiehlt. The other ones, ich befehle, wir befehlen, ihr befehlt und sie befehlen would stay normal. Just du und er, sie, es, the E is changing to an IE. Then empfehlen, to recommend, the same. Du empfiehlst, er, sie, es empfiehlt. Geschehen means to happen, and it's just possible with the personal pronoun es. Es passiert, oder es geschieht. It's just possible with es geschieht. We cannot say you happen or he happens or so. We just say es geschieht. It happens. Lesen, to read. Du liest, er, sie, es liest. Okay, it's exactly the same, the conjugation for those two. Sehen, to see, du siehst und er, sie, es sieht. Stehlen, to steal, du stiehlst und er, sie, es stiehlt. Okay. Then the next group, and in this group, the A is changing to an A umlaut, just as we had halten, as you see here. This halten belongs to this group. Fahren, to drive, is one of those, or to ride or to drive. Here, this is one of those verbs here. Ich fahre, du fährst, er, sie, es fährt, wir fahren, ihr fahrt und sie fahren. As you see, the good thing is it's really just changing for du und er, sie, es, and just the vowel. Usually it's the first vowel that is changing. Then the next, let's have a look at those. Backen, to bake. It's possible to say du backst or du backst. Both is possible. Okay, it's a verb where both work. Blasen, to blow. Du bläst, er bläst. Exactly the same conjugation here. Braten, to fry. Du brätst, er, sie, es brät. Fallen, to fall, du fällst, er, sie, es fällt. Fangen, to catch, du fängst, er, sie, es fängt. Please listen closely to the pronunciation, so I will just go through all of them. Graben, to dig, du gräbst, er, sie, es gräbt. Halten, to hold or to stop, du hältst, er, sie, es hält. Laden, to load, du lädst, er, sie, es lädt. Lassen, to let, to leave, du lässt, er, sie, es lässt. The conjugation is the same here. Then the next one, raten, to advise, du rätst, er, sie, es rät. Schlafen, to sleep, du schläfst, er, sie, es schläft. Schlagen, to beat, du schlägst, er, sie, es schlägt. Tragen, to wear or to carry, du trägst, er, sie, es trägt. Wachsen, to grow, du wächst, er, sie, es wächst. The same conjugation. Waschen, to wash, du wäschst, er, sie, es wäscht. Okay. Now let's have, there are of course more verbs that belong to this group, but again, for the A1 level, this is the ones that you need. Here in this group, the E is changing to an I. Geben, to give. Ich gebe, du gibst, er, sie, es gibt, wir geben, ihr gebt und sie geben. Okay, again, all normal irregular verbs just change with the personal pronouns du und er, sie, es. Okay, so here you have another list. So here I will read just the verbs. Ausbrechen, brechen, essen, fressen, gelten, helfen, messen, nehmen, quellen, schmelzen, sprechen, stechen, sterben, treffen, treten, verderben, vergessen, werfen und zunehmen. Okay. Then the next group, this is when au is changing to oi. Now there are very, very few verbs. There are almost no verbs that belong to this group. We have laufen, which means to run or to walk. We usually maybe walk fast. And then we have just one example here, saufen, which is to swig. Du säufst, er, sie, es säuft. And the conjugation of laufen ist, ich laufe, du läufst, er, sie, es läuft. Wir laufen, ihr lauft und sie laufen. Okay, there are hardly any verbs that belong to this group of irregular verbs. Okay, so that was the chapter about the irregular verbs in German. What you have to keep in mind, as I've just if you've just have seen, usually they are just changing, most of the time just changing for the conjugation of du and sie as. The rest of the whole conjugation just stays normal, does not change. Then we have another group of irregular verbs that are completely irregular, like haben und sein, but there are not too many. Okay, so please study at least the verbs that are here in this chapter. There are more that you will learn later on in the A2, B1 level, and so on. That are the ones that you need for now. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this lection und bis zum nächsten Abschnitt. Tschüss!